Sister Veronica McHugh. She was born and educated in Ireland. She developed a love of travel while working for the Irish Civil Service, which took her all over the world. And I love this part, that after all this travels, she developed an interest in inner travel, which led her to the Brahma Kumaris in London in 1976. Here she became one of the first Western students at the organization's World Spiritual University. After spending 6 years at the Brahma Kumaris European headquarters, she went to the United States to establish teaching centers in Tampa and Miami in Florida, and she continues to coordinate the Brahma Kumaris work throughout the state of Florida and frequently travels the world to teach. Her teachings offer spiritual principles to guide people to heightened awareness, as well as practical methods to help us access our inner power, to build resilience and stability, and increase our capacities for clarity, courage, and compassion. So welcome again, sister. And I'm not going to read the whole question. I'm going to go straight in. This approach about inner change is quite critical. To engage in the inner work with kindness, gentleness, and understanding is key to inner transformation. Please share with us how you approach this notion of inner work. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucille, and to my two brothers and my sister for their wonderful sharing and the feeling that you wanted to engage with each one as to what they were saying, and whether it was with the bishop, because there was also marches happening in Northern Ireland in 1968, but unfortunately the police were brutal when it came to the marchers, and things have now changed considerably since then. And I very much agree with what my sister Ella says, that these great leaders, they were like the figureheads, but they couldn't have done what they did without the tacit agreement of the human race, if you like, who knew what justice meant, who knew what equality meant. And it was almost like as if they powered them. And my lovely brother Kennedy, and those magnificent stories that he told. And again, this quality I think that he speaks about in terms of Jesus, love, yes, but the manifestation of it was compassion. And yet he didn't set himself up by saying that he would forgive them, but he said, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. So the role of forgiveness, if you like, goes to a higher source. Thank you. You're allowing this, my sharing, to be very subjective in a sense. So I'm going to go back to when I first encountered the Brahma Kumaris in London in 1976. And in fact, I still have the form that I filled in on my arrival there. And one of the questions was, why do you want to meditate? And the answer was very succinct: self-realization. And would you believe that within 4 months, I had that experience, but rather than it being the end of the journey, rather than it being the destination, it was really the beginning of the journey, and continues to be part of the journey. This understanding your own self in terms of all of your complexity, the fact that you're an eternal being, and from my perspective, that there have been many lifetimes. And along with that, side by side, and also powered by the idea of knowing God as he is, how he is. And so the two things hand in hand, knowing God, knowing myself. There's a famous American author, James Baldwin, who said that not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. And this was one of the things that I have been learning over all these years, the many disguises that we have taken on or put on, either to protect ourselves or for some other reason. And again, referencing a poet who said something like that the thoughts of men, that we hide them, that we conceal them for fear that with blame will be reproved. So we all move tricked in disguises, alien to the rest of men and alien to ourselves. And so it was one of the things that I discovered, what I would often present as my quality or a good thing. Later on, I would discover that it was hiding something less than holy, if you like. Now, again, when my understanding, and I go to the Judaic Christian holy book, the Bible, and as you can see, the end and the beginning are the same. And so referencing the bishop's circle or cycle. And so this idea, which is very empowering at one level, that I originally was in the likeness of God, that there was a divinity, but that throughout the process of life, of being connected with matter, that things changed, that pure energy decreased, if you like. And so part of the work now is to reconnect with my divinity and to re-emerge it, if you like. I sometimes think that the soul, it's almost like as if it has these tubes coming out of it, and the tubes, one through which love flows, one through which peace flows, one through which happiness or joy flows, one for innocence, and one for wisdom. But it's almost like they've become caked, they've become, you know, where they have, it's almost like there's a stenosis in each one of those valves. And so that energy is not able to flow like how it should. And so then the need for cleaning that, in a sense, but it's not as difficult as it sounds. The main thing is to remind the self of my likeness to my Father, to God, and to draw that energy into myself, which will begin that cleansing process. And so, yes, I absolutely subscribe to the idea of the journey needing kindness. Some of the things for me that have worked, that make things easier, is acceptance. First, an awareness, an appreciation or sorry, the appreciation might come later, but the acceptance of whatever it is that's going on at the moment. And ultimately, there can't, because without the acceptance of where we're at and what's going on for me, then I don't think movement, I don't think change is possible. And going back to that thing of where I mentioned that I would, what would be revealed to me in my meditations is that I had been hiding some defect in the guise of something holy. And so a sense of humor, that even whilst I'm dealing with eternity and whatever else, but that you don't take yourself too seriously. I think a spiritual atmosphere. Another thing that's very important for me is the company that I surround myself with. And I'm not saying that you only remain in the company of people who are absolutely like yourself. That would be a futile exercise. But at least to begin with, to be around people that are manifesting what your ideal for yourself is, that they are showing it in their lives. They're reflecting back to you, and also that you're also able to see your own flaws and what needs adjustment or correction. And in that way, you're gathering strength, which will then enable you to be in any company. And then rather than you being contaminated by something not so holy, that rather you can contribute something just simply by being yourself. And there's also this trust in timing. Are we okay? There's a trust in timing, but I'm going to go back to what has been mentioned throughout, and it was a recent experience. And that is the experience of love. And so not in a remote or an idealistic way, but in meditation. That for me is what endeared me to this life. But the experience of divine love, because in that experience, then nothing else exists. And you're able to hold everyone and everything. You both absorb and you absolve everyone as well from what you might have considered were past hurts or transgression, including your own self. And so I do believe that each one in their uniqueness has their own approach as to how they will deal with their transgressions. And so you can do it the hard way, or you can do it the soft way. And I think the soft way is through yoga, is through meditation. So not only do we carry out the whatever the act is, but there's a subtle mechanism within each soul, a subtle wisdom. And for a while, you're in tacit agreement with it, that this is what you deserve, or this is all you deserve. And you could be selling yourself short, or that even that you know, you deserve some kind of punishment. Punishment is never going to be effective. You know, it's never going to get you to where you want to be. And so that at the moment, it's like as if, you know, the universe is waiting to complete itself, and it needs me to be on board. Another thing is simply timing. And it's like one of our, Daddy Janky, who was the head of our organization until she passed away a few months ago. And one of the things she said is that all future possibilities are in the seed of the present moment, and that the hope of the world lies in each one of you. And so it's humbling in a sense. And so these would just be some of the things. And I focus very much recently on the world that I see in the future. And so there's been these exquisite, if you like, expressions of divinity experienced. And yet I know that there continues to be excavation necessary, just like releasing, you know, the diamond from the earth, or David from that piece of marble. And so that there's hope, there's great hope in and faith that we will get there together. Om Shanti.
About just some thoughts about how we can cultivate self-compassion and compassion for others. Thank you, sister.
Thank you. Compassion is, I would say, an attribute of the original nature of the soul, and probably resides in the domain of love. And a little bit different, I think, from empathy, because sometimes empathy involves my own emotions, or it will want to see, if I'm seeing you as a victim, then I'm also looking for a villain, perhaps. Whereas compassion, I think, is an empowering thing. And the first thing that compassion does is really sees the person. Two things. One, when I was in South Africa 2 years ago, and we were having a similar dialogue, and there was a young Buddhist, I don't remember if he was a monk or not, but one of the things that he was trying to do, and I agreed with it so very much, and that was to get into the schools, especially in the primary stages, a way of teaching compassion. And I felt that more than even say peace, that it's a very demonstrable thing, compassion. And also thinking once of a child who demonstrated great compassion, a 4-year-old child in front of another. And my question then, is compassion innate, or can it be cultivated? And I think both things are there. And one other thing was, and this I saw on Oprah Winfrey. She was doing a news show here in the States that's very popular on a Sunday evening. And she was telling a story, the gist of which, and it had been a realization for her too. And it was this place in the Northwest where it was like a school or a facility that was for people who had undergone trauma, whether of physical or sexual abuse or whatever else. And for her, in relation to other people, the question was changed. And so rather than saying, as we so often do when people are misbehaving or they're just not logical in their manifestation, and you are inclined to say, what's wrong with you? And instead, the question that needed to be asked was, what happened to you? What happened to you? And so then that, both that empathy, because there is part of you that knows, there but for the grace of God go I, and that that you can learn even as you're hopefully providing something as well. So the two things then, it is both innate and it can be cultivated.
I'm going to call on Sister McHugh for her last comment on the importance of non-violence in the context of so much violence, including state violence. Over to you, ma'am.
Again, I am going to come back to all of this on a personal level, and that each one is responsible for their actions, their attitudes, and we're all involved in wanting nonviolence and peace and love of God and all of those things, but each one doing it in their own unique way. And so I do believe that there is also something almost like underground work that's taking place, and it's more to do with intentionality and vibrations. And I do see that there's a connectivity there. I know very clearly that I reached my destination insofar as coming to the Brahma Kumaris through the vibrations generated by someone else whom I didn't even know at that time. And when we speak of violence, usually we're talking about the extreme, but yet what is the violence within me? And so perhaps I'm missing something if I'm still not subscribing, say, to a plant-based diet. Surely there's a violence there. Or maybe there's words that I'm using that are a put down or a criticism, etc. And just seeing this thing of there's been an overabundance of taking, of grabbing, of whether it's from matter, whether it's from nature, whether it's from others, this greed. And so that is a kind of violence as well. And so that each one of those things, I personally am trying to reform, transform within my own self with the focus on, you know, as Gandhi said, be the change you want to see. And I do have faith in that world of nonviolence here on the earth. And so the whole thing of the importance of my thoughts, the whole idea of resonance, where your thoughts and vibrations attract a similar thing into your own life. And so I believe that there's a huge army of humanity that is marching in that direction, not least the young people. They're more clear about it in some ways than we are. And so again, bringing it back to the personal and decreasing whatever is the violence, because now the bar is set very high. It's not about killing or slapping someone, but it's about your own personal life and interactions and relationships. With just a conscious breath, I release. I let go. Dropping the name by which I am known. The title that describes what I do in the world. Like taking off an overcoat or hats which all have expectations from others. I go into my sanctuary. That is already welcoming in its quietness and absence of any other association. And just with the intention of being with myself, unadorned, undecorated, there is light. Gentle and warm. Enfolding me. Almost caressing me. And the lightness that ensues is as if I am no longer limited or confined by the body I call me. And a mixture of thoughts, slow, steady, and feelings. Fill me. I am in the experience watching at the same time. No resistance. And with each thought, it's as if I float higher and easily. No memories, no desires. And as I relax in this state of knowing and accepting that I am peace. The heart opens to receive. From that purest source of love. As if reminding me thou art that. As the Father is the ocean of love, that is my essence. The only one who can reflect back to me that my original nature is other than physical, is light, is peace, is love. And as his eternal child, innocence, I return to innocence. Om Shanti.